Good evening, everybody. Um, it's been a very, very difficult last few weeks for the country, and I think never before than in these present times that we understand the relevance of responsible citizenship, of what it takes to really create and nurture every kind of a responsibility, every kind of a life skill, every kind of processing. And I thought that perhaps this is a time where we should actually talk about it. Um, and how is it that very early in life we build a certain kind of a process in the mind of the child? Very difficult times for children till last year. It was 1 year to go, and things you kept feeling that the children are going to come back soon. But during this time and during this entire process of what we are all going through, I think that these exercises of practical life, as the Montessori calls it, would help children not only to be busy, but also to really develop a kind of a calm stability, which is so required in today's times. I have done my Montessori many years back, and while we modified it, we changed it, but there's a certain essence to what was created that many years back that holds good even today after so many years. So I will talk about the activities, I will talk about what it is, and we've given you a list of the long list of activities so that each domain can be taken care of with these exercises of practical life. They will help us to create responsible children. And while we are expecting and going through this whole process with children, perhaps a little more sense of mindfulness and responsibility as adults to take this generation where we really feel we deserve to take them. Tough times, and I think at the beginning itself, I'm going to just wish everybody struggling with good health, everybody who's lost people, just a lot of strength to you. And the reason why we continue to do these sessions and continue to reach out is because of the simple fact that life has to go on, and we all have to just keep holding during this time to just see this time together. So God bless this the whole world and all of us who are dealing with everything. So, the Montessori House of Children, they call the exercises of practical life as simple daily chores, which the man, that is the adult, man, woman, adult, carries on in the environment to maintain and restore proper conditions. It's also relevant to the world today, isn't it? That each one has to do a certain amount of things to restore proper conditions. So, if you have to do it for your home, imagine the sense of responsibility in the world at large. So, basically, exercises of practical life are those things which you repeatedly do to maintain and restore a certain process. Now, adults do it like a duty, they do it like a routine. But when children are introduced to the exercises of practical life, they do it like a involvement, like a commitment, and most importantly, they do it like they are copying the adults, and they feel an intense sense of responsibility. So that is the difference in an adult doing the daily chores and activities and involving the children to do them. So they start feeling a little more involved in everything. They start feeling a part of doing what the adults are regularly doing, and it helps them a long way in life. There are so many aspects of the exercises of practical life, the daily chores, which can really influence the learning in the long term. And we just do one step at a time. So, first, when we are setting up the exercises, when we are setting up the activities, when we are explaining it to children, what all should we do? So please download these beautiful posters that the Square Panda team has made, and it has got a few pointers. So it says that it should be reality based. It should be what the children see around them every single day. They should be complete set of resources. It shouldn't be incomplete. If you have a broom, you have to have a dustpan. If you have a dustpan, you have to tell them how to clean it and wash it. If you tell them how to clean it and wash it, you have to have a water tap at their level. You have to have a duster at their level. So it's like a whole complete process. Child-sized proportions. You can't expect things very high and expect children to reach that point. So everything to be child-sized. Actually, I was realizing today, a few days back, when I was preparing for this session, I was watching a beautiful video, and I realized that in homes everything is so high. We don't think of a wash basin in a home at a slightly lower level where the child can reach. We just never thought of it. I wish we did. I wish we did it in homes where there are children, where there is something which is at the level of the children. I think it really helps to bring them into this whole routine. It should be in the child's reach, like I said, easily washable and cleanable. Whatever resources you're giving the children or offering them to use have to be resources which can be kept spectacularly clean. The adult's role would be to include facilitating safe handling of each task. So the safety of the child would be the norm, and most importantly, for the adult to feel and keep it in their mind that the child is capable of doing this from a very, very young age, very young age. So just as soon as the children can start walking, as soon as they can start holding things, they can actually start following simple instructions. And keep that in mind, because these are the skills that are going to last this child for a lifetime. So very important not to let them be totally dependent on you. Totally, it's very, very important. And in the Montessori House of Children, there's a beautiful house of children in Amravati, where we had called Jadhav ma'am to talk to us in a couple of sessions back when we did the Square Panda Sundays. And I used to go to her environment, and it was like a pleasure to see how the littlest child does their own work, right from laying the mat, taking off the shoes, putting them in a spot, cleaning the surfaces. I mean, it was amazing. So it is something which has stayed with me, and I thought that during these times when the children are home, I think if we set up our homes with this concept of EPL, exercises of practical life in our own sensibility, then we will design things for children like that. So not only the Montessori House of Children, I think any place where the children are right now, they're home, but even when they come back to school, these are things which we must include in the daily curriculum, the daily planning, because we do all of the other things, but the basic things are so. And just a few days away is going to be the Mother's Day celebrations, and what better than to create a responsible set of children who can support the whole home, the parenting, the way things are. So all this is very, very important. Keeping them well maintained. And what is very interesting about giving things to children is that it will have a local characteristic. There will be a certain local aspect to it. Every city, every locality, every part of the country and the world has its own unique distinction of things that are used in the house. So if the exercises of practical life are created with those things, it will also bring in the local flavor, the basic thing the child sees around them, So that local character is this very, very important part of exercises of practical life. Also, so these are little, and if for at home you can have single sets, but in schools, multiple sets of the same resource must be there. If you have brooms, there should be enough brooms. If they are dusters, there should be enough dusters, so that, and the display of the material should be absolutely clear. So a lot of these things should be kept in mind in schools, and at home, of course, it's much simpler because these resources are everyday resources which you use at home, right? So we've given you a huge list of resources, but what I want to talk about are the skills that these exercises of practical life will help us to do. What will they make children understand? I think that's what I'm going to talk about today. So we do it as a duty. And surprisingly, many of us don't do it to perfection. Whereas when children do the same exercises, holding the tray, carrying a glass, closing a lid, pouring the water, sweeping, dusting, just closing the cupboard, switching off the light, there is a precision with which they do it. So they learn how to be more careful. And there's a mindfulness, there's a whole thought that is going into the child's head. And there are skills that the child is learning, visual memory, looking at a thing and saying, oh, mom did this, dad did this, or daddy did this, or dada did that. And visual discrimination, understanding that these are two different ways of doing things. These are all things we talk about academically, but they are things that the children do when they're doing simple exercises of practical life, everyday mundane things which are routine, and they can participate in it. Another very nice thing is that it helps them to develop their fine and gross motor development without realizing, because they are picking up things intricately, they're placing them intricately, they're sweeping, they're moving, they're bending. So without their actual, realizing that they're doing gross motor development, the gross motor development is happening. So visual memory is happening, visual discrimination is happening, fine motor skills are happening, gross motor skills are happening. And we work like in our curriculums, we perhaps don't see the exercises of practical life as such an expanse that these very simple mundane activities can actually help the children to do so much. So just now, when I was just talking to one of the very very senior Montessorians, she said that we did these beautiful activities during this time when we told everybody that why don't you peel the peas. So it was a repeated activity, and there was a completion to the activity, because after the peas get peeled, they will get cooked and you will eat them. So there is a completion of the activity, there is a unique purpose of the activity, which is such a simple thing to do, that you're peeling the peas, and you're putting the peas in another container, and then you are placing the peels on another part of it, so you're sorting. By moving and opening the peas, you are using fine muscle development. When you're going to taste it, you're going to use the taste, and then a sense of purpose, that today I contributed to peeling peas with my, mom or dad, whoever is cooking for the day, or daddy or nani or whoever. So it's a completion. I think it's a beautiful thought. And she was telling me that the children love the activity. Another very interesting activity, which during this time, now that I'm talking of activities, something as simple as peanuts. Breaking roasted peanuts and putting the peanuts on the other side, taking out the peel of the peanuts, pounding the peanuts, right? And then the mother gives them some good, the jaggery, and then they mix the jaggery with the peanuts, and they make these chota laddus, and it becomes a local dish which they can actually do on their own. So you break the peanuts, you take away the peel of the peanuts, you pound the peanuts. Mom will give you a little warm jaggery. You mix the peanuts in that, and then you make them into these little balls, and you can act. So again, a completion. It's about a whole completion. When you've swept the floor, you've picked up the thing, you've become a part of the cleaning process in the house. So any activity which is like a daily routine activity, which has got completion and a purpose, gives the children an intense sense of satisfaction. Very interesting to see the kind of language development. So we've talked about fine motor, large motor, memory, visual discrimination, satisfaction, and now we'll talk about language development. How many words, how many movements, descriptions, adjectives that the child learns while doing daily activities. I mean, can you imagine the lists? If you make the list of even simple, movement, sweep, mop, place it, pick it up, put it there, sort it out, sweep, this dust, need, feel. There's so many words the child learns. Can you do it quickly? Can you do it neatly? Can you keep it? Can you do it quietly? So many, the way the activity is done, the adverbs are taken care of, adjectives are taken care of. Can you pick up the brown mat? Can you pick up the white bowl? Can you, so descriptions? Can you pick up the small pillowcase? Can you put your so they are words which the child will learn without realizing. Prepositions, put this under the table, besides the table, on the table, behind the table. So there is so much, imagine, just out of exercises of practical life, everyday activities. We had done one of these sessions in the kitchen, but activities of practical life would be in different parts, something like even closing the buttons, even a titch button, even a normal, a shirt button. All this is going to help the child, and later is going to be such an asset for the child's learning environment. So as the child grows from a 3-year old, 4-year old, 5, 6, 7-year old, you can change the intensity of the activity. And if you're conscious that yes, the child can do these activities are possible to be done, automatically you will start thinking of the various aspects I'm talking about, so that you feel that, oh my God, this activity is going to give the child so much. Now, in times like this, when the schools have closed down and there is not going to be very much of interaction even with the teachers for the next 2-3 months, perhaps it's a time for teachers to talk about this to the parents on maybe on a note, or send them a little, like we've sent you an activity sheet. You can send it ahead to your school, your teacher, your parents, and you can tell them that these are the things the children can routinely do. And it will actually keep the children busy through the day and get them very involved. Another thing very important about these activities is there is a familiarity. Children see these activities every single day since they are born. And when you actually offer the activity to them, there is nothing new. The material, the resources, the activity, the process is all seen by the child. So there is a certain familiarity and there is a certain reaction to familiarity. Anything that you're familiar with, everything that you're comfortable with, I think, like in today's times, I think so many of us are reacting very adversely because this is not a familiar situation. We don't know how to react. We don't know what to do. So I think sometimes, even something as simple as familiarity helps people to react in a better way, right? So that's one big part of the exercises of practical life. The language related to the environment, the rooms, the resources in the house, the simple things. So, like I said about the language development, that part we've already talked about. Another very interesting thing with activity, with the exercises of practical life is they have a sequence. Like I will tell you a small little story. Like Chachi ne chai banai, 4 कप चाय बनाई, पतीला उठाया, पानी डाला, दूध डाला, पत्ती डाली तो चीनी डालना भूल गई भाई। फिर फीकी चाय में मजा नहीं आया और सबने सोचा कि क्या नहीं डाला चाची ने, तो क्या भूल गई थी चाची, तो चीनी भूल गई थी। उसने कैसे क्या क्या करना है, पतीले में पानी डालना है, गैस पे रखना है, उसमें दूध डालना है, पत्ती डालना है, चीनी डालना है, अगर चाहो तो इलायची डालना है, and it's a daily process of making tea. And we can actually talk about it, कि there's another lovely story that we do, कि हम उल्लू ने जो था, या कुछ भी खरगोश ने और या चुन्नू ने और whoever ने खिचड़ी बनाई। तो कैसी खिचड़ी बनाई उसने, पानी डाला, चावल डाला, दाल डाला, हल्दी डाली और नमक तो डालना भूल गया भाई। फिर उसने उल्टी पुल्टी खटखटी चलाई तो फीकी खिचड़ी में किसी को मजा नहीं आया। तो उल्लू ने क्या डालना भूल गया था या खरगोश क्या डालना भूल गया था। Here, so it becomes like a process. Any activity of exercises of practical life have a sequence and a process. And that sequence and a process help the child to also understand processing, first step, second step, third step, fourth step. And that is how, and these activities, another very important thing about these activities is that the brain likes and responds to sequence. Familiarity of a process. When you're learning how to drive a car, you switch on the car, you put the gear, if you're using a geared car, then where do you put, you press, the brake, you press the, so accelerator. So there is a process to it. And as you get used to that process with repetition, the mind starts responding like a instant reaction. So, exercises of practical life are repeated activities which are done routinely. They have a certain sequence, so the mind starts getting used to responding to that sequence. So, that's another thing that happens with the exercises of practical life. Very, very important. Another very, very important thing, perhaps very relevant in the present environment, is dignity of work. Every kind of work is included in the exercises of practical life, right from mopping the toilets to, keeping the wash basins clean, to sweeping, mopping, dusting, sewing, putting your vessels away. There is such a long list of exercises of pounding, any activity which is like a daily home chore. So there is a dignity of work. The child starts understanding that all these things can be done by anybody. In the last 1 year, I think getting just the whole family to participate and work has been a challenge in many homes. But right from the beginning, if these children are doing these chores, something like, even pick out your clothes from the wash bin and put it in the washing machine with me. It'll take 5 minutes extra, but it's good for the child to do it. It's good for you to have a wash bin for children, which they will carry from the washroom, take it to the place where there is a washing machine, put it inside with the parent, under parent guidance, and they will understand that if you forget to bring your bin, your clothes are not going to be washed today. Because it's a sense of responsibility. Let them do it. It is doable. Once the washing machine clothes are out, like what we put the picture in the session today, let them dry their own clothes, give them little pegs to put them at the, see, safety. After you follow the safety norms, obviously you don't want them leaning over a balcony, but you can always put them on a clothes stand. And it's a sense of responsibility. The clothes are washed, I put them in the bucket for you, please come and dry them. Let it become a routine. Let it become a process that the child understands that this needs to be done. Don't feel uncomfortable, because this is how children will learn, with the repetition, with the process, and with a routine. कि ये करना है. It's a repeated process. I think that's very, very important. Another very important thing is the focus, the span of focus. So initially the child will be restless. We'll do maybe activity, the exercise could be done for like 5 minutes or 2 minutes. Gradually you give them a bigger patch to clean, a bigger patch, a bigger patch, a bigger patch. So the child's focus and span of attention will grow. This focus and span of attention will grow, and the fact that you have to finish a process, an activity which you started. When you start it, you have to complete it. So span of attention and completion will both become a process of exercises of practical life. If you're going to wash a dish, you can't put soap and leave it. You have to put the soap, you have to wash it, you have to dry it, and you have to put it back in the correct place. Then the process finishes. So slowly the attention span of the child will grow. And imagine this is with routine everyday activities, So think about it with all these aspects of, we'll compile them towards the end, but I thought we must discuss each part of all of this. Another very important thing that happens is we talk about social, emotional, personal development. And it's very, very interesting to see how content and positive the children feel when they are involved in a complete process of daily activities, because they are involved, it's a part of your daily work, they are doing it with the family or with the friends in school. So there becomes a whole completion of emotional involvement. When I was making this list of what it does, this whole exercises of practical life does, I was speaking to a very strong, staunch Montessorian, and how easily each of these skills was being talked of. That, do you realize that this happens? Do you realize that that happens? And I said, oh my God, it's far more than what I had thought. When you thought, think of a topic, and then you start working on the topic. I think the expand sometimes, a topic just doesn't have enough. You say that, oh yeah, it does just improve children in parts. But this has like a huge, huge impact on the welfare of the children, and obviously on the long term learning. So this is something which we must think in these terms. Just a little warm something to keep my throat going. So concentration, emotional development, and now we'll talk about the academics. Now our favorite, the A to Z, the words, the spelling, the numeracy, and different aspects of literacy. All the description, each thing that I described to you, each process of what I described to you, do you feel it will help in creating this whole concept of literacy, better learning in children? What all I described with, I took out also some whole, I have these cards that I keep using for all my workshops, and they are like almost 100, more than 100 cards that I kept, for different workshops. I made different cards, and somehow or the other, when I was actually making this list for exercises of practical life, I realized I could use so many of the skills in all the different subjects. Like we put out over there that you have the social emotional development, happy homes, global citizens, life skills, and how much more can you build. So, skill building, we talked about so many kinds of skills that we were talking about. We talked about awareness, we talked about responsibility, talked about values, participation, understanding that activities need to be completed. There is a process to it. So, skill building is a very important part of the exercises of practical life. A large vocabulary, so many words. You're doing nouns, you're doing adjectives, you're doing adverbs, you're doing verbs, you're doing prepositions. So, and you're doing sentences, so there is such a large part of your vocabulary that gets developed. Developing the right attitude, understanding that these are routine activities which need to be done, and developing respect for work, understanding that homes and schools just don't run on their own, neither does the world out there. Everybody has to participate and do things. Consistency, you have to do these activities regularly because that's a part of the routine, right? So consistency happens, order happens, sequencing and order, right? The children's values of home and participation and work carrying forward, even if you do exercises of practical life in the school, there is a certain value system that builds, and it's distinctively with the environment. If there's a certain way, so certain homes function, certain regions function, then that value system comes into the children. We talked about visual memory, sensorial development, the sense of touch, feel, rub, smooth, concepts of heavy, light, all that will develop with children doing routine, simple activities at home. The ability for repetition. Repetition is a very important learning aspect of early years, and exercises of practical life are exercises which have a repeated pattern. So it gets children used to repetition. Scientific temperament. Yes, because you will understand that when you dry clothes in the sun, they dry faster. When you squeeze them out, the water comes out. When you put the water in the fridge, it cools down. When you take out ice, it melts. When mom makes tea, there is steam that goes up. You can mix things, you can divide things, you can stir things. So unconsciously, the development of a scientific temperament. Motor skills and movement, we talked about that. We talked about gross motors, fine motor. We've given you a whole list of activities as well. Visual discrimination, remembering how to do things differently. A very important part is discipline. Understanding that resources have to be put back in place. There is a certain order for the resources. There is a certain pattern of working. There is a certain way to do it. So a discipline gets instilled in the child. Another thing very important is sometimes the sequencing, order and sequencing. The child develops an inquisitive nature. How are you doing this? How did you do this? What was the recipe you made? So the how inquisitiveness grows. Because the how inquisitiveness grows, the child becomes mindful. Because the child is mindfully looking on how you are doing it. When the child becomes mindful, the child also develops a sense of kindness because they see the intensity with which a certain thing is done for them on a routine. So imagine the processing, if it is done well, what it does as an expanse for children. No wonder this miracle, educationist so many years back gave so much importance to the exercises of practical life. And then somewhere everything we do gets concentrated on other things, not the routines. So if we can just keep thinking of all of this, counting. Sometimes you may have to count things to put them away, a large amount of sorting. So look at the amount of exercises that, skills that the child is learning with this set of activities. So when you, download what we've asked you to download in the sense of the exercises of practical life, we've given you a whole list for life skills, for art skills, manners, fine motor, large motor, from the kitchen, hygiene and cleanliness. So whatever you can do easily with whichever age group, choose activities out of this, list them out and try and do them as a repeated pattern with children. I think once that is done, it will help the children to get this understanding, and even when they come back to the environment, they will become there is a sense of responsibility that we all have to create in all of them, and I think it's important. Even in public places, unfortunately the next few days, I would just say all of us have to be home, and later, and as we children are going out, even the basic thing like using of a lift, how to take care of themselves, how to take care of people on the lift, how to keep little bit of space, public space used. I think consciously we have to talk of all of this. It's very, very important for the normalcy to come back and for the children to come back to school. So these exercises of practical life are going to help our children to create this basic need. How to help people in need? What all can we put together from our home to go out and share? Can we do sandwiches today for the next 1 week and go out and share them with people? So help the children to make. It's really hot today, so can we do little bottles of lemonade and distribute them? This is also a time to create a social sense of responsibility in the children. If they contribute to it, it's not like you make things, just get it there for them. Even if they're doing something like a simple bread, butter, jam, and sandwiches and going out and sharing them, you know what the country is going through at this point of time. Even if the smallest of child can be conscious and can do this with you, it works. Lemonade making, a small sandwich done, like we said the other day. I was just talking about the pounding of the groundnuts with a little good. So India has such a vast amount of things we make in our homes. So slowly and slowly think of how you can involve the children, how you can make them, understand how to work, even a small thing like how do you leave public conveniences? How clean should they be? Even if it's a drop of water falling down, how should we keep a public washroom clean? Everything gets part of this exercises of practical life. So sharing, doing a small cooking thing for people. Maybe there could be people around your buildings who are not doing very well and you want to leave a meal outside. Do a small part. Maybe the child could have just peeled a salad for them and feels complete that I've contributed to a meal for somebody who needs it. We all are doing this, right? Today, in today's circumstances, we are reaching out to people. We are doing whatever we can. We don't have to do it for 500 people. But even if we do this for two people, it is a consciousness that we build, a sense of responsibility. It's strange, In buildings, there'll be some people who will be so helpful, and there'll be some people who just won't be helpful. So, what makes this difference between two kinds of people? One person will just reach out and do something for you, and one person just will not care. So, what do we want our children to grow like? Where do we want this whole generation of little learners who's already homebound? It's already the second year going into them. What do we want to take? And we really all hope and pray this passes. But while this is passing, how do we prepare them for a better life? I think the exercises of practical life, slowly and steadily, will bring this preparation, will bring this thought, will bring a routine, will bring a sense of purpose, will bring language, will bring memory, will bring, a long term effect on the brain, focus, repetition, stability, all of this to make them better learners. I think even academically, it will help the children a lot. So, I do hope that you will download this list that we've given you. Also, I'm going to ask Sejal to put up all the activity lists once more, so that you you can download them. If you miss them out, you can share them with your parents, you can share them with the other teachers, and just keep taking this forward. The next week we are going to have a wonderful young team of people, and this team talks about positive energy. They're young people working on positivity with young people, with young children. And I thought I was so impressed when I saw their work, and I spoke with this Panda team, and I said I would definitely want these wonderful people to come down and talk to you, show them they've done this beautiful journal with the most simple stories and activities, and I thought it's relevant at this time to just talk about it. Gratefulness, just I think in the moments, I think all of us are going through troubled times, right? So, whatever we can do to make it a little easier for each other is what we are all going to work towards. So, we are going to see you next week with a whole set of very young people. And yes, we are going to be talking about positivity. And we hope that you all are going to use these exercises of practical life and understand that there's so many domains, so many aspects that they're going to help you to cover. So, I'm going to wind up with that. Have a good evening. Have a safe week ahead. Isolate as much as you can. Do a lot of these activities at home, and keep yourself happy, safe, healthy. Keep your children safe. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Square, square, panda.